Alright, here we go. Got your drink, got your snacks, then let's get into the amazing facts. Let's do this. Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. A single day on the planet Venus lasts longer than an entire year. This is due to the incredibly slow rotation of the planet compared to its close proximity and thus shorter journey around the sun. When hungry or in need of something, cats knowingly manipulate people into doing their bidding. They use a special purr that sounds like a normal one, but embedded in it is a cry that humans find hard to ignore. Despite being twins, Amy and Katie Jones-Elliott were born 87 days apart. Their mother, Maria, went into labor on June 1st, 2012, after being pregnant for only 23 weeks and gave birth to Amy. Then, on August 27th, 13 weeks later, doctors induced labor and Katie was born. The pair of girls hold the world record for time between two twins being born. Ignoring the many diseases that insects can carry, it would take around 400,000 mosquitoes to extract enough blood from a human being to kill them. And it would take 1 million mosquitoes to drain all the average person's blood from their body. Famous artist and genius of his time, Leonardo da Vinci, was an ambidextrous paranoid dyslexic and could draw or paint forward with one hand while the other wrote sentences backwards. The melody of the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the USA, was actually taken from To Anacreon in Heaven, a British song about drinking and sex. When icebergs melt, they produce a fizzing sound called the Bergy Seltzer. The sound is made by the popping of air bubbles that have been trapped in the pressurized ice for centuries. The real name of the wizard in The Wizard of Oz is Oscar Zoester Phaedrig Isaac Norman Henkel Emmanuel Ambrose Diggs. In the original book, he explains that he goes by Oz because the rest of his initials literally spell out Pinhead. Lions, tigers, leopards, and jaguars are the only subspecies of cats that can roar. All other felines are incapable due to not having the elastic ligament connecting bones supporting their larynxes that those four types have. The filling that sits between the wafers of a Kit Kat chocolate bar are actually other Kit Kats. The exterior of every bar is examined, and those that have too many air bubbles or other imperfections are ground up into crumbly dust and used to make more chocolate bars. Side note, if you've never had the green tea Kit Kat from Japan, you haven't lived. The Denver International Airport in Denver, Colorado is more than twice the size of the island of Manhattan. It's the largest airport in the United States and has the biggest jet fuel distribution network on the planet. Researchers and zoologists have proven that birth control pills used by human females also work for female gorillas, leading many to believe that our two species have more in common than we originally thought. Susami, a small fishing town in Japan, received a Guinness World Record for having the deepest mailbox on the planet. Situated 10 meters underwater off the coast is an old-style red mailbox in which divers can place waterproof letters which are collected every few days. And it receives a lot. The mailbox actually gets between 1,000 and 1,500 pieces of mail every year. There are more possible iterations of piece placement in a game of chess than there are atoms in the known universe. Every month, water treatment companies around the world extract over a ton of hair from their plants. The hair is most often taken to a waste facility and buried, but some companies have found other uses for it. I do not want to know what those uses are. There are whales living off the coast of Alaska that were alive before Herman Melville's classic novel Moby Dick was written. Melville originally published the book on October 18, 1851, and many of the aquatic mammals living in the Arctic are over 200 years old. The Haskell Free Library and Opera House is located directly on the Canada-US border and has two different addresses, one in Stansted, Quebec, and the other in Derby Line, Vermont. The Canadian side contains the library and stage, while the American side has the main entrance and most of the seats. You can literally borrow a book in one country, take it a few steps, and read it in the same room, but in a different country. century. Although she's often associated with the Great Pyramid in Egypt, Cleopatra lived closer in time to the creation of the smartphone than she did to the construction of the massive pointy wonder of the ancient world. When the Great Pyramid was completed, woolly mammoths were still roaming the Earth. The last man to walk on the moon was astronaut Eugene Cernan. Before climbing back into the lander on December 1972, Cernan dragged his foot through the moon's dusty surface, writing TDC, his daughter Tracy's initials. And theoretically, they're still there today. Consuming alcohol before firearm shooting competitions has been banned in many places due to alcohol being labeled a performance-enhancing drug. Drinking has a calming effect on nerves, which can actually steady a shooter's hand. Monarch butterflies have been known to become cannibals, consuming other monarch caterpillars or eggs, though usually they do so only when their food sources are scarce. Almost all Muppets on Sesame Street or The Muppet Show are left-handed. This is because most puppeteers are right-handed. They use their right hand to operate the character's mouth and the left to work the left hand or hand rod. The owner of Fender Electric Instrument Manufacturing and inventor of the Telecaster, the first mass-produced electric guitar on Earth, Leo Fender, couldn't actually play any of the instruments that he designed. A close inspection of the Liberty Bell, which is currently in Philadelphia, reveals that Pennsylvania is misspelled. One of the N's is missing. Spell check, folks. Spell check. NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building at the Kennedy Space Center in Titusville, Florida, is so massive that it has its own weather. Rain clouds often form inside the building due to humid weather. The Captain mascot from Cap'n Crunch cereal's full name is Captain Horatio Magellan Crunch, and his ship is the SS Guppy. In the town of Coloma, California, the dead outnumber the living by a ratio of nearly 1,000 to 1. There are grave markers for around 1.5 million of the deceased, while the living population sits at only 1,600. As per his last wishes, after the death of Edward Hedrick, the inventor of Frisbee golf, the man's ashes were molded into a new series of Frisbee and sold, so that he could be thrown around forever. After his fatal shooting, rapper Tupac Shakur's ashes were rolled up and smoked by his friends, who took his last wishes from his song Black Jesus very seriously. If you took all the cement used in the making of the Hoover Dam, you could construct a 2-lane roadway from New York City all the way to San Francisco. If dropped from an equal distance, a solid glass or steel ball will actually bounce higher in the air than a regular non-bouncy rubber ball. This is due to the harder balls losing less energy when they make an impact. Leopard frogs use their eyes to help them swallow food. By squeezing them shut, they pull their eyes into their own mouths, compressing food down into their throats. According to research conducted for Forbes magazine, the richest fictional character is Scrooge McDuck, who had theoretically amassed a fortune of over $65.4 billion by 2013. Well, yeah, I mean, he filled a room with coins and swims in them. He's rich. Smaug, the dragon from the Hobbit book and movies, also made Forbes' richest list, taking second place. His hoards of gold and other treasures were estimated to be worth around $54.1 billion. Mature goat bucks will urinate on their own heads, beards, and front legs before initiating a mating ritual. There are an estimated average of 40,000 injuries involving toilets every year in the United States, and some of them lead to fatalities. High up on the northwest tower of the Washington National Cathedral, among the grotesque gargoyles, sits a stone carving of a head of Darth Vader. When the tower was being built in the 1980s, a contest was held for kids to design the statues. Christopher Rader received third place, and his submission, The Dark Lord of the Sith, joined the ranks of limestone heads. In 1985, the tiny town of Riverside, Iowa, declared itself the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk, the fictional captain of the USS Enterprise in the original Star Trek series. Modern Eskimos use refrigerators despite living in mostly sub-zero temperatures. Instead of using them to keep food cool, they actually use them to prevent their food from freezing. Though listening to someone being constantly sarcastic can be frustrating, studies show that hearing such sly and witty remarks can actually improve both analytical and creative thinking. Oh yeah, sure it can. It'll make you way smarter. The largest tapeworm to ever be surgically removed from a human body was a whopping 33 meters long. Jarl Sigurd the Mighty, Viking ruler of Orkney, was killed in 892 AD after being bitten by a man he'd beheaded. After mounting the head on his executed enemy on horse, Sigurd rode off, only to have the head's teeth scratch his leg. The wound became infected and soon cost the Viking his life. There are more wild camels in Australia than anywhere else on the planet, including the Middle East. In fact, the camel population has gotten out of control, and tens of millions of dollars has been spent by the Australian government just to deal with them. In 1989, while taking a private romantic stroll through a zoo with his then wife Robin Givens, heavyweight boxing legend Mike Tyson spotted an alpha male gorilla bullying his fellow apes. So the champ offered a zookeeper $10,000 to let him into the cage so that he could fight it. The zookeeper declined his offer. For 3 years during World War II, Academy Award winners took home painted plaster statuettes instead of the more traditional solid bronze Oscars that were plated in 24-karat gold. This was due to a metal shortage, but after the war was over, winners were invited to trade in their plaster Oscars for the standard versions. The name Jessica, which was the top baby name for girls in the United States for many years in the 1980s and 90s, was actually invented by William Shakespeare. He created it for his play The Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare was also the man behind the well-known phrases dead as a doornail, bated breath, kill with kindness, and vanish into thin air. Beetle species make up around 40% of all documented insects. After finding out his wife had been sold fake gems by a jewel dealer, Roman Emperor Gallienus had the dealer arrested and dumped into an empty arena. He then let the man stew there while he listened to hungry lions roar on the other side of a door and waited to be torn limb from limb. However, when the door eventually opened, instead of vicious cats, a small chicken came running out. A herald then called out he practiced deceit and has had it practiced on him.